You are listening to Comp&Ben Talks. This podcast is dedicated to people who are interested in compensation and benefits and HR topics and challenges, and wish to understand what IT could offer in that regards. If you wish to educate yourself in these topics, see others people's experience and perspective, this podcast is for you. Enjoy listening. Hi, this is Bartek
Aneta Samkoff,
and Magda.
Welcome to Comp&Ben Talks, episode 6. And in this episode, we're going to talk about LTIPs, long-term incentive plans, and deferred comp in general. And the reason we take on this topic today is that LTIPs are becoming increasingly popular comp type, and also they can be increasingly complex and complicated. And very recently, we published an ebook or a guide on our website. And I think it can be a good source of truth or source of knowledge for this increasingly complex topic. So I do encourage you to check it out on our website, give it a read, and then let us know what you think. And I think it's good that we have Magda here and Aneta, because we can tackle this topic from multiple angles and from different sides. So we have Magda. You are Comp&Ben practitioner, you have years of experience in the field. And then we have Aneta, who's a Comp&Ben researcher, and you have me. So I have experience in implementation of LTIP software and projects, so you have IT expertise on it as well. So we have the Comp&Ben practitioner, the researcher, and the IT guy. You can think of it in this way. So let me start with a simple question. What is LTIP? Or long-term incentive plan? Magda, would you start?
Yeah. So, hello everyone, and roughly saying, it's just a bonus plan. But what makes this element of remuneration package so specific is a time frame. So, long-term incentives refers to long-term, of course, and this is at least 2 years, sometimes usually 3 years, and sometimes 5 years. If we have less than 1 year, we usually talk about short-term incentive plan, so the opposite. And what else? I think also specific is a KPIs being set for this type of plan. So they cover entire organization. So we don't have here KPIs just for one manager or one department. They are very general. They are strictly combined to strategy. Mm-hmm. And of course, last but not least, what is very specific is also kind of financial instruments being used for payout. This is not only cash. It can be cash, but this is only one type of those plans, and it can be also shares or options, and we will cover this later on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would like to add, you can think simply of LTIPs as incentive or a bonus that is being earned in the present and paid out in the future over a period of time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I wanted to touch on this performance criteria or KPIs that you mentioned, Magda. So you said it's not like it's for a division, it's more for the whole company. So it's typically typically attached to a price of shares or performance of the whole company. So typically it's like, for example, total investment return on the company's shares. So we see things like this attached to LTIPs.
Yes. Usually those financial KPIs on a strategic level, and also I also encounter CSR KPIs added to that. Social responsibility of the business in long term.
Well, that's very interesting.
And how do you measure that if you have something like this? So it's like number of organization that you support, or like
No, I think this is rather a social project being completed.
Yeah, can you give any examples? That's very interesting topic.
Cooperation with NGO organizations or implementation of kind of I don't know, educational projects, so being implemented, yes or no, right? So, or a certain amount of money being granted for that, or this kind of.
Okay. So it's like type of a gate KPI, like whether it's completed or not. It doesn't have a specific.
Yes,
numbers.
0-1 completion. Yes.
Okay. Okay. And LTIPs they come in various types and forms, and they can be pretty complex. Like in our LTIP book, we have a nice diagram prepared by Aneta that explains this. So if we can take a look, and for those who listen to us, I encourage you to take a look at our website, or you can check out our YouTube video, so you will see it there.
Or download the ebook.
Or download the ebook. It's on
our website.
It's on our website. Okay, so so we have a couple of types of LTIs. We divided them into 4 major categories. So we have the profit sharing, we have cash-based, the stock-based LTIs, and phantom stocks. And interestingly, phantom stocks are kind of combination of cash-based and stock-based LTIs, because they actually they track typically they track the performance of the shares, but they are not turned into shares. So the company doesn't have to buy them really. The company just delivers the cash after calculating how much it should be.
And it's even actually more complicated, because you can have the full value vehicles or the ones that track the appreciation only.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that there's so many different kinds, and
it gets very complicated.
So you have RIA, for example, restricted equity awards. You have options. You have performance units. You have appreciation only vehicles. So those are different types and forms, and the differences between them are some of them pay dividends, and that can be pretty complex from technical point of view, because then you need to calculate when, for example, when you have dividend-based stock and it's not turned into stock even, but it's like a phantom share that should track the dividend, then the calculations are pretty complex, because you need to calculate the dividends, and typically you need to add stocks on as much as the dividend earned. You need to turn it into phantom stock again and calculate again in next year. This is just my 5 cents from implementation perspective, but these are things that we encounter.
They also come with like different voting rights, right? It's a lot of different tax contributions, right? There are a lot of tax laws associated with each as well, so it can get really complicated.
And in my experience, when we implement, I think the most popular ones are the phantom stocks, because companies don't necessarily have to buy them, or so they just track, and if they buy them, they can buy them at the settlement date. So they can actually buy them. They don't have to buy them upfront. They don't need to use money upfront. You can just track it in a tracking tool, and then you can buy it at the end of maturity period, and then you can deliver them either in form of a stock or in form of a cash. And there are some countries where you actually can't deliver stocks. Like
so
Russia.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, because I guess it also depends on the vision and strategy of a company, right? The choice of the LTI. Because if you, for example, do not want to dilute the ownership, you would rather offer cash-based incentives or phantom stocks, which may be good for like small businesses, family-owned businesses. But if you have like a startup or maybe like enterprise level company, then you give real ownership, right? How is that based on your experience, Magda?
In general, I agree. I think I follow your point. This is how it works. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we went through the types of LTIs. We said there are typically stock-based or phantom stocks or cash-based. It can be cash-based. It can be also profit sharings. I think important question is why LTI is important. So why do you think companies use LTIs at all? What does it bring? Should I start?
I guess, yeah. I mean, the key.
Like, because I brought two notes
Yeah,
from your
right.
from
Yes.
our
The biggest point, I think, is to really align the shareholders' interests with those of the executive, those who are in charge of the company, to have the same long-term vision as that would benefit the owners,
okay.
right?
So
And the retention of these key figures as well, right? So that we want to lower the rotation.
yes, so for me the same. Like first thing that comes into my mind is the retention of people. It's
Yeah.
like when you actually get LTI, like your stock base or cash, then the willingness to leave is smaller. So, but this is also, you have this buy-in bonuses, you have welcome
Yes,
bonuses.
yes,
So
you have
actually,
those as well. I think that to me the most important, the key is really the long-term vision of the company and aligning of these interests of the shareholders and the executives. Because as you said, you can offer someone a buyout and they can leave, but the key is to have that long-term outlook. Without LTI and actually hitting these performance goals that are based on your strategic vision, the executive can, or any figure and any person actually can naturally, we think short term, right? We naturally don't rather like go into the future and plan. Rather we focus on the day-to-day experiences and like the short-term outcomes. So LTIs like really motivate people to have that long-term vision, to think about it. Both the employees, the executives, the C-suite, and the shareholders, the owners.
so when I was actually going through the materials for LTIPs, I came across like a lecture from Professor Lasser Akkoff. This is Ackoff, and that's a pretty old lecture. But he's a professor of organization thinking and system thinking. So it's like well known in the field. Unfortunately, I think he died in 2009.
Yeah,
So
he passed away. He passed away.
he was 80, 90 years old, so he
Yeah.
has the experience. And in that lecture, he gave these examples that interests of a management or executives are easily misaligned with the interest of the shareholders,
Yeah.
because they have typically different perspective, and then the LTIPs becomes like a tool for companies to
It's a
set
motivating tool.
and then
Right.
then you have the well-being of the top people or
Yeah.
key people in the company is attached actually to the well-being of the company.
Yeah, it's a great way to direct people in certain way, right?
And Magda, you mentioned when we spoke, you mentioned the risk management. So I think this is something also connected with it. And you said the sentence that this is the short-term controlling of long-term goals.
That's a great sentence.
So, what did you mean by this short-term goals versus long-term goals? If you could explain.
So this is also from my practitioner. I fully agree that this alignment to the vision is the main purpose of this solution. However, risk management is also very important. So setting up short-term goals, we focus usually on growth. And we need to discourage managers, our top managers, to make risky decisions, right? Because they do a lot to achieve short-term goals. However, they should mind the broader perspective, the perspective of entire company, what will happen in a couple of years. So this is how long-term incentives plan control short-term incentives. So they disregard this risky.
So you might have
approach.
like a short-term incentive, let's say to hire 50% more sales representatives, or like it was in 2008 in the
Exactly.
USA, where you were encouraged to give to
mortgage to the people who
to sell more
Yeah.
mortgage, like the subprime mortgages, and then so it's nice in 1 year or 2 years perspective, but in 5 years perspective, it's terrible
Yeah,
for the
it means a
company and
huge
for
problem.
everyone around. So I think the social responsibility goal wasn't reached in that case.
Definitely, yes, and also financial goal has been not met in long-term perspective.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a personal experience in because I was once a customer of Wells Fargo Bank in the US.
Oh, me too.
And apparently they set their targets on setting up accounts for people. So they set up accounts for me that I wasn't aware of, and then the reason I learned, they sent me emails like apologizing for setting up accounts on my
Yeah.
behalf. And the core issue there was that the sales plan was set up in a way that it was enough to open an account, and it was like so you would fulfill the goal, the KPI. So they would open random accounts for random people that actually were not interested in it.
Unbelievable. But this is how it
That's-
works when you push
And I think
people in
that was
short
a big
term.
deal in the.
It was. It really was. This bank doesn't exist anymore.
Because they-
It was bought out by
Oh.
Wachovia.
Okay. Because they
Yeah.
even offered me like if I wanted to sue them, here's how can I do it? I was like, oh.
Instruction, how you can sue them.
Yeah, you can definitely sue for that.
I can't imagine suing somebody from Poland in the US.
Yes.
But,
And
but that's what happens when you actually have Comp&Ben done wrong.
Yeah.
So that might be.
yes, and you motivate too much in short term. Yes, so you should think broader. And actually, on financial markets, I think this is obligatory to have this mix of bonus plans, short term and long term now. So after this
Yeah.
crisis in 2008.
Yeah, in implementation perspective, I even incarted a notion of something that's called a deferral matrix. So by default, if your bonus is greater than a threshold, then you are obliged to defer it. So by definition, your short-term incentives becomes long-term incentives after some threshold.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
So, and you, yeah,
This
you
is
actually
psychology. I think,
calculate it.
yeah, it
That's
works
a
well.
good mechanism.
Yes, yes. So it's not worth to achieve the goals or exceed the goals for just for short-term advantage, right? So
Yeah, and I think the key here is also the point that really LTIs form the largest part of the executive of the compensation, right? So it's not the short-term incentives, it's not the salary, it's really the LTIs that can reach even the level
mean
of
they-
like 60% of the total compensation
Yeah,
of the
so
employee.
it's huge.
Yeah,
in
it's
other words.
huge, and it also is interesting because it differs from sector to sector, right?
Yeah, so in like financial sector, it would be different than in
Yeah, like
power sector
healthcare,
or
for
health.
example, is like really
And I-
huge.
And I think what's interesting, and
Yeah.
not everybody gets it from the start, is that those LTIP plans then they overlap. So that once you build up, like
Yeah.
if you granted like 5 years plan in year one, you just have one plan, one tranche, and then it's not that interesting. But then you have another one, and then in 5 years, your first plan is becoming mature, and then you have other plans overlapping. So each year you actually receive something from plans that you got in the past. So
It's like a snowball effect.
it's like a snow. So
Yes.
after like certain period of time, you actually start getting every year something from various types of LTIs and plans that you had got in the past. And tracking this, like when you track one plan, it's really simple. You can do it in Excel, and then you have a second one,
If you
and
have
third one,
overlapping
and then they
plans,
overlap, and then
and then you have to count the performance.
yeah, for each one,
That's-
and like some companies
yeah.
set performance for each year, for each tranche of each plan, for example.
yes, and
Yeah,
each
and they
plan,
differ. Right, they differ from employee to employee, and if you have multiple employees, multiple plans, and they nest it and overlapping on top
Plus,
of that,
it can be phantom stock in a different currency.
yeah, phantoms in a different
Plus,
currency.
you might have like
Yeah, tracking the appreciation only, right?
and then and you can have like when you want to price it, then it might be you might just count the average price of a share over a period of time, and then you need to define what's that period of time, and then you need to calculate the average.
And there
it
are
can be
also
like
averages,
weighted
right?
averages.
Yes,
Yeah.
the preset prices, like that
True.
gets super complicated. I think it's untrackable
Welcome
in
to my
Excel.
world.
No, it's trackable.
Really?
It's trackable. I can recall the situation
Yeah.
when I had 3 open plans, and each was delivered in different financial instruments. So I had options, shares, and long-term cash.
Oh,
yeah.
goodness.
So,
And that was tracked in Excel?
not only, but
I hope not.
Excel always works for everything. No,
Oh,
we had
goodness.
also
Yeah.
specialized software supporting.
Yeah, I think that's what you need, the specialized software, because I can only imagine how many mistakes are in those
Yes.
Excel sheets.
I think we can talk more about technical aspects of this because it's really interesting.
It really is, yeah.
But today I just don't want to take too much time on
yeah.
it. So I guess
Sure.
we'll do another episode about this.
We can also continue with some psychological aspects.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I would jump to the second point, which is challenges related to LTIPs. Magda, are you okay with this? Or
Yes, sure.
Okay, so when I thought about it, I thought about 2 types of challenges. So these are like effort and effect challenges. So like a psychology of LTIPs, and then you have technical challenges, which we mentioned. So all those calculations and various types. So if we could focus on this psychological challenges or this effort and effects, because apparently like the readings and writings are pretty.
Yeah, the scientific research, right?
Yeah. So apparently there's nonlinear proportion between how much LTIP you give and what you get in return. So the financial relation is.
So I would say there are 2 points here. One is that there is generally a discount attached to any reward that is to be fulfilled in the future. Like, it's not weighed by a human being by the same.
I have this quote here.
Yeah, exactly.
From the ebook. So it says, can I?
Sure.
So it says LTIPs are an amount of money with a very high discount attached to it.
Yes.
So what does this mean?
So this means that generally human beings
prefer things now
instantly. So if we have the same, let's say, award offered to us right now and the same award offered to us in 5 years, let's say.
Take now.
Yeah, they not. We don't think, oh, this is like $1 million right here and $1 million here. No, like we rather think of like, oh, here is $1 million for me now, and maybe I can count it as like 50,000, right? Like we discount. So we tend to discount. So it's not equal, even though like it is still big award. So that's the one point. And the other one, I think, is that the proportion that you mentioned, meaning that at some point these awards are so large that it doesn't really make such a difference, right? There is this effort and pay curve.
After certain threshold, like people value their time
it's
more.
Actually a sinusoid. So like at the beginning with the lower amounts, the effort like rises exponentially, but then it reaches certain point where the awards are really high, where it just flattens. Meaning, like it doesn't matter if you give, if you offer 1 million or 10 million or 100 million, like the effort won't be proportional.
But then the executives compare each other.
But then they compare each other, and that's even more important. Like they would really prefer to earn in absolute terms less in general than earning less than their friend from another company.
So like in comparison they need to look good.
They need to look good. So for example, like if let's say a friend in the company earns like 100K and our executive offer has 80, like he's
It
not
will
gonna be happy.
It will be an issue.
It will be an issue, yes, but if you if you look at the average in the society and you give the raise and compare to the average in the society, like they don't care about that. The benchmark only against
the
like
peers.
their peers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we can conclude that human beings are people.
Yeah,
That's-
human beings are competitive.
Yeah, so I wanted to stop a little bit more on this first point that you mentioned, this nonlinear, um, nonlinear effect. So you say for the start, it makes a difference, but then later it flattens.
Yes,
out, and then
at the beginning, the relation between effort and pay is exponential, meaning with the smaller amounts, the effort rises much more
Okay.
exponentially, right? But then it hits like the middle point where it's linear,
and then
meaning exactly proportional, and then it flattens
and
again.
okay. And then the second point you mentioned is that people prefer now over the future,
Yes,
which is
yes,
like,
and there is a discount attached to
which
it.
is
Exactly.
a known economic
So there are these 2
term,
points.
and this is why you have the interest rates, and you can save because people prefer to have things now. Like
Yeah.
people prefer to borrow money now and they don't care so much what happens in the
Exactly.
future.
Yes.
Magda, do you have any comments on this?
I fully agree. I'm psychologist, so yes, that's true. This is how it works.
We should stop talking.
Yes, let Magda.
We are not psychologists, Magda.
We are not. Yeah.
Yeah. And the most important thing is to weight this correctly, and this between effort you're spending on that plan, and of course making people happy and appreciated. Yeah, feeling appreciated. So yeah, this is.
How is it done? Do you know how is it done? Is it done privately by the companies? Do they do any kind of specific research?
Or do they just pick like what they think?
Yeah, I'm wondering about the process.
Like, the question is if there is like psychological process thinking.
Yeah, how do you go about
LTIPs?
weighing? Yeah.
I never set up this from scratch, but I think advisory companies, external advisory companies, are taking part in it. Of course, research, market research. Very important is comparison to peer companies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Actually, in LTIPs, if I may, Magda, sorry. So I think in LTIPs you have this, you have this third parties often. So you have those like big four advisory companies, let's say, that will set up your plans, or like tell you how you should set them up. Then you need to set them up. So you need to set them up. So you need to have your, let's say, Excels, or preferably like LTIP software that would keep track, calculate, and pay. And then you might have like external party, like a custodians, when were actually supposed to send the shares or information about shares, how much they should buy, and you need to have payroll, of course, because like God knows what you're supposed to pay in each country, because it varies per country. So you even need to hire like external company that would calculate the amount of tax you're supposed to pay per country per LTIP.
I think taxes are the next topic. We should talk
about. Oh yes, we need to talk about it.
We should.
I'd rather talk about technical.
Technical and taxes, yes, next time. Yeah,
right.
Because
next
our challenges.
Okay, I guess we can tackle this next time. Yeah, I think we should be wrapping this up, because we spent some time on it already. So I guess we should have a part 2, and then
absolutely,
in the next part we could cover the technical aspects.
We could continue with the challenges, I think, because there are more challenges to talk about, right?
Okay. Yeah. So if I just may summarize what we covered, we spoke about LTIPs, or deferred bonuses in general, the types of bonuses, whether they're stocked or stock-based or cash or phantom shares, and then we spoke a little bit about the psychology of this, the challenges related to it, plus
and the benefits and the reasons
and benefits
for using LTIPs, for introducing them in your company, because because the scientific research really shows that the surveyed executives and MRTs really claimed that they do work.
Yeah,
They do what they're supposed to.
yeah, and they're used by companies, and I rarely see companies
Increasingly used,
like-
right? They're becoming more and more popular.
Yeah. So I rarely see private companies that do things that don't make sense.
Right.
Typically,
And it trickles down, right? Because it comes from these enterprise level stable companies through the mid-size, emerging, and even family-owned businesses and startups. And more of them are adopting them.
yeah, LTIPs even show up in Poland. So
Absolutely, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's all right. So Magda, is there anything else you'd like to add for today, or
No, I think we are good for now. Yes, we will continue next week or so. Yeah.
Yeah, next week sounds good. All right.
Pleasure to have you here, Magda.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks everyone, and
Thank you.
we will attach any materials related to this episode in the links, so at least in YouTube, so you can check them out there. And yeah, check out our LTIP book on our website. I think it's worth reading, and it would be good if you comment on it or give us a shout.
Yeah, don't be afraid to reach out. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Magda.
Have a nice rest of the day. Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Bye.
bye.